The objective of this video is to learn about the point-slope form of equations and how to write an equation given either a coordinate and a slope or multiple coordinates. You may remember the equation we learned for slope was this m, which stands for slope, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And remember, when we're working with equations, we generally had y on one side and x on the other side of the equation. This doesn't have that. So we really can't use that for our equations, but we can use it as a starting point. Let's say we are given this point, 2, 3, and a slope of 4. Well, if I plug those into here, I get 4 is equal to y2. We're going to plug it in for y1 because we've only got 1 point, so we're going to call this point 1. Which means we're going to do the y minus this y value, which is 3, over x2 minus this x value, which is 2. Now that we've got that, since we don't have a second point, does it really matter that we have these subscripts on here? No, we can take those out. Just have y minus 3 over x minus 2. Now technically this is an equation. But as I said before, we want to have y on one side and x on the other. Also, I don't like the idea of having this fraction here. Wouldn't it be nice to get rid of that? Well, remember, when we have a fraction and we want to get rid of the fraction, we multiply by what's on the bottom of that fraction. And right now, on the bottom of that fraction, I have x minus 2. So I need to multiply by x minus 2 to get rid of it. Because this and this will cancel. But whatever you do to one side, you have to do the same thing to the other side. So at this point, you have x minus 2 times 4 is equal to y minus 3, because these two things cancel out. I don't like having the 4 after this set of parentheses. Can I move it to the front? Sure. The commutative property of multiplication says that I can multiply in any order here. So I can change this to 4x minus 2 is equal to y minus 3. Also, I don't like having y on the right-hand side. Can I put it to the left? Sure. As long as I flip-flop these, it doesn't matter whether I say this is equal to this or this is equal to that. Either way, it's the same thing. So I'm going to flip it around. So it says y minus 3 is equal to 4x minus 2. Now, there are going to be cases where this is acceptable as your final answer for an equation. And there's actually a way to get from this to this rather quickly without having to go through all these steps. And we're going to see that in the next thing here. What we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to put back those subscripts and stuff. But this time I'm only going to put the subscripts of 1 in, because we're not replacing this x and this y. We want the x and y to be in our final equation. We want to replace only these x's and this x and this y with something. The x here stays, the y here stays. So now I can get that same equation where this point and this slope simply by plugging in for this y, that x, and that m. So if I'm given this point and this slope, I keep the y. y1 is the y value of the point there, which is 4. And that's going to be equal to the slope, negative 2, times the quantity of x minus the x value of 3. There's an equation. This is what's known as the point slope form. Why is it called the point slope form? Because if you're given a point and the slope, you can easily plug it in to get the equation. That's why it's called the point slope form. Here's another one. This time we got some negatives in here, and that can cause some problems with slope. So let's see how it works in here. We also have a fraction for slope. Remember, slope is a ratio, so it's often going to be a fraction. So we still work with the same formula, y minus the y1, which is going to be the negative 3. And that's going to be equal to the slope, 3/4, times x minus the x value of negative 2. Ick. Look at all those parentheses and stuff in there. Well, minus a minus becomes a plus. Minus a minus becomes a plus. So this is actually going to be y plus 3 is equal to 3/4 x plus 2. And I can leave it just like this. This is my final answer. That is the equation. It's acceptable at this point. We are going to move on shortly after this to do some slightly different form. But if you ask for the point slope form, or if you ask just period for an equation, this is an acceptable equation given that point and that slope. Here we're given 2 points. And those 2 points could be given to us in a table which have more than 1 point. But all we really need is 2 points to get the slope. And if we have the slope and we have 1 point, we can use that equation. So first we need the slope though. So we use the slope formula. Those martini glasses sitting on top of the picnic table there. And I plug in y minus y, negative 2 minus 3, over x minus x, 5 minus 2. And I end up getting negative 2 minus 3, or you can do the keep it, change it. I get negative 2 plus negative 3, which is negative 5, over 5 minus 2, which is 3. So my slope is negative 5/3. Then I go over here to y minus y1, which if I choose the first point, the y1 would be 3, is equal to the slope, negative 5/3, x minus the x value of 2, and there's my equation. Why did I choose the first point? Well, I could actually use either one. This is an acceptable answer, or I could have used y minus the y value here, which would be actually y plus 2. Still the same slope of negative 5/3. Still an x here, but it's be minus the x value of the second point, which is the 5. That there is also a solution. Does that mean you have to give me both of those? No, don't give me both. When you're asked for an equation, it's one or the other. Don't write both and put the or in there. You just have to give one. Unless otherwise stated, just have to give one equation. This one or this one will do. Don't give both. If you give both and one of them's wrong, the whole thing's wrong. So you're better off just sticking with one. Alright, remember the best way to do math, to learn math is to do math. Here are you're given a point and a slope, and 2 points. Give me the equation of a line. Pause the video now. Welcome back. Alright, for this one, we're going to use that y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. And this is going to be our y1, and this is going to be our x1. So we get y minus 3 is equal to the slope of 4 times the quantity x minus 1, and that's your equation. Here we have y minus the y value of negative 5, so it becomes y plus 5 equals the slope of 3 times x minus 2. Down here we have to calculate the slope first. So we do y minus y, 6 minus a minus 4 becomes 6 plus 4, over x minus x, which becomes 3 plus 2. You get 10 over 5, which is equal to 2. So there's our slope. Our equation, y minus, well, let's start with this one first, because I like minus the minus becomes the plus. So minus the negative 4 becomes a plus 4. The slope is 2. X minus the minus 2 becomes an x plus 2. And that gives us our equation. Or I could have used a second one, which would have given me y minus 6 is equal to 2x minus 3. So either one of those answers would work. Now, as I said earlier in the video, these are acceptable if you're asked for an equation. However, many times the multiple choice answers are going to be in a different form, or they may ask you to put them into a different form. And that form usually has y alone on one side of the equal sign. So let's see how we can do that with these. I also want to prove at the same time that these two are actually the same equation. They look different, but they are the same. To do that, we're going to solve for y. First, we use the distributive property to get rid of that set of parentheses. That makes this y plus 4 is equal to 2x plus 4. 2 times 2 is 2x, 2 times 2 is 4. Then we would subtract 4 from both sides. And that would give us y equals 2x. Much simpler equation, easier to work with. So many times simplify it like this makes it easier to work with your equation. Let's do the same thing here. Remember, these were the answers to that last you do. And we said that either one should work. So they should work out to be the same. When we do the distributive property to get rid of the parentheses, we end up with y minus 6 is equal to 2x minus 6. Add 6 to both sides. You get y is equal to 2x. Surprise, surprise, they are the same. So although they look different, those two equations are the same. And that's why we can have two answers when we work with this solution. When you work with this as the equation form, you could have two possible answers that are both the same. Now for something completely different. Which you will see tomorrow.